Well, hello again, everybody, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome back for another week of the Legal Contact Podcast. Here for week number 8, fellas. Well, 2 of you fellas.
Football.
Yeah, we only got 3 again.
Football.
And I wasn't even one of the 3 last week.
Down to 3. I know we were down to 3 last week without you. I'm glad you're feeling a little better.
Yep, glad you bounced back.
And you're here with us.
COVID,
You had a valid
man.
excuse.
Yeah, it wasn't just I didn't feel well. It was that I really didn't. I'm not kidding. I went 2.5 years without getting COVID. Last Tuesday night was probably one of the worst nights of my life that I've ever felt. Like the fever was just, it knocked me completely out. It felt terrible.
Isn't it strange? It's so strange how we still don't, still don't understand how we get it, how you can go 2.5 years without it, and now randomly working from home. Yeah, it's weird.
I know how I got it.
Okay. Oh yes. Yeah, that is true. We know how you got it.
Stupid freaking wasted my time going to watch that joke of a team play at Maryland.
At a joke of a state.
Yeah.
And a joke of a state. And
in the rain, right? Didn't it rain?
In the rain. And I guarantee you where it was. So I had to use the restroom, and very small restroom, lots of people. And they had 4 stalls. 3 of the stalls did not have a latch. And I'm like, I'm not going into a stall that doesn't have a latch. Like, no, I go to the bathroom. I'm not doing that. And so I waited in there for like a half hour. And I guarantee you, me being in that enclosed space for a half hour, that is exactly what had to do it. Did the Yankees score? Is that why Obi got so excited?
No, it's a commercial break. I think he sees a squirrel though.
Oh.
He got distracted.
For whatever reason, Cooper woke up too and just wants to look out the window while it's dark outside.
Chase didn't come down with me. He stayed upstairs with Cher, so I'm all alone. But anyway, yeah, so that I digress. That's how I got COVID. Not only did my team completely make me very, very, very angry, Maryland also gave me COVID and had me sick, which is why I missed last week. So, but I'm back.
So maybe we're going to just rotate with our college football teams, because Jared has had a good football team. Last year, Michigan State was fantastic. Mm-hmm. This year, Tennessee's doing very well. So next year, UConn is going to be undefeated at this point in the season.
Hey, 3 wins.
You have more wins than my team.
Look at that.
You haven't played my team schedule though either, so
I don't know, man. Play Ball State this week. That's pretty tough.
Uh-oh.
That's a good MAC team right there.
I know. There you go. We beat FIU last week.
I was gonna say, we don't ever start with UConn. Let's just go ahead and start with the UConn Huskies this week, Thomas.
Well, it's just I don't know. It's a culture change, really. It's 3 and 4 is you got to be happy about. Jim Mora just doing some wonders here. First FBS win in 3 years. Now 1 game away from 500, and Ball State's a winnable game. Somebody on the Yankees just hit a double. Now I'm distracted. Oh, wait a sec. Okay, I'm very distracted. I apologize because the Yankees, I don't know what just happened. That's bad.
This is a football podcast.
I'm sorry. This is playoff baseball, and this is a recipe for disaster. Trying to multitask here because
I understand. If it was the Tigers, I'd be the same way.
Okay. Well, as far as UConn, so many injuries. Starting quarterback, starting wide receiver, starting running back, all out for the season, and now they're 3 and 4. So it's some positive things.
It's all coming together.
Yeah, and we have the Liberty game in a few weeks coming up. Liberty at UConn, which I'm hoping to go to. So
I was gonna say, are you gonna be like, do you want UConn to keep rolling? But Liberty could be in a very interesting spot.
Yeah, I think I have more recent affinity to Liberty football because I've been to a good amount of games in the past. They've been a more entertaining team in the last 10 years, obviously, and I've watched more of their games in the last 10 years. So watching Liberty football, they've kind of by default been more of my team in a way. But no, I would be going there rooting for Liberty, especially because they have more investment in this season. most likely. Yeah, I still, even with 3 wins, I don't think UConn will be bowl eligible looking at the rest of their schedule. So that game means a lot more to Liberty at this point.
If they win this week, that gets them to 4. Then you probably lose to Boston College. Then you play UMass. That can be a win. UMass, that gets you to 5. Then you have to either beat Liberty or Army to get you to 6. So
Army's really bad this year too.
That is true.
So you might be able to get bowl eligible. If
And give up the Liberty game.
If the UConn Huskies become bowl eligible and my Spartans are not, I don't know. I don't want to think of that. That's depressing.
Well,
can I vent real quick on baseball? Or they're reviewing this. What are they? Donaldson hit the top. Donaldson hit the top of the fence. He's trotting around. They don't call it a home run. He gets thrown out. They review it and say it's not a home run. He's out. It hit the top of the wall.
Did it hit the yellow?
There really is no yellow in the right field. That's the problem.
There should be a yellow strip on. Isn't there always?
I don't
on every
see it.
field?
Yeah, well, they just showed the review. I didn't see any yellow strip. I'm sorry, Peyton, but I'm so distracted. I was so confused at what was going on. Home run. He's trotting around the bases, and they throw him out. And then they review it and say it's not a home run, and he's out.
Well, I think the lesson here is Donaldson needs to give 100% every single time.
You are right. This isn't the first time, so that's cost. I mean, if they end up losing by 1 run, that's unacceptable.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway.
I hate that I want the Yankees to win this because I don't want Cleveland to.
Well, everybody wants. It seems like we talked about the Astros winning. Everybody wants the Astros, Yankees kind of. I think, nobody likes either team unless obviously a Yankee fan, but nobody likes either team. But it's kind of the draw of the two bad franchises going against each other one more time.
Yeah, the only AL team that I want to see do well is Seattle. Yeah, that's the only one. Yeah. And I want Philly to lose, and that didn't happen tonight. They stinking.
Okay. Well, can I give to bring it back to football? I'll give a quick NC State update as well, as they did end up winning, having a decent win, comeback win after that tough Clemson loss. But Devin Leary ended up leaving the game early and has, I think it's a shoulder issue, and his status is pretty up in the air. And Dave Dorian today gave an update, which was no update, and it was very vague on that. So we don't know if he's going to be back. I think they play Syracuse, who's now all the way up to 18 in the ranks, undefeated, 5-0. So we'll see. I mean, if he can't play, he's their whole offense. They've lacked playmakers all year. We saw that in the Clemson game. The defense really stood strong, but on offense, it's really Devin Leary, and that's about it, which is uncharacteristic for previous NC State teams. You can see, all the talent they have in the NFL on their skill positions. So that's a big issue this year. And if he's not 100% or if he doesn't play, Syracuse might win that game, and Syracuse could be a top 15 team next week if they win that, which is pretty wild to say.
What do you think of how Florida State was doing at the end of the game? It's been decision making, coaching.
Yeah.
Give me some thoughts on the opponent there.
Well, Florida State, we all of us really didn't expect much out of them this year. And then, week 1, they come out, surprise win against LSU. Then they have a tough loss against Wake Forest. And, so they've been teetering in and out of the top 25. And they were up big for most of that game. Yeah, the decision making was a little strange. Their offense just stalled, and they couldn't score late in the game.
The interception. I'm like, why did you throw the ball?
Yeah,
y'all were moving up. Okay, you didn't need to take a shot at the end zone. All you had to do was keep the ball, keep inching forward, and then kick the field goal to win.
Yeah, take the field goal to win, and then it just. Inexperienced court. I mean, is he a sophomore?
Travis is a junior.
A junior. Okay. Mm-hmm. This is only his second year, I think, playing though, probably
Mhm.
most likely.
Yeah.
But still, I mean, I guess he's had a decent amount of starts. You would think that the inexperience wouldn't be too much of an issue at this point with a couple of big wins under his belt. Yeah, that was just you can't do that.
Is
Yeah,
that redshirt junior or is that COVID junior?
I think he's just a COVID junior.
So he's got.
Mm.
You could still have another 2-3 years left with him too. So,
well, I don't know what kind of recruiting class Florida State has coming in, but I'm sure they're getting some competition for that role because they've had
you would think. I mean,
some
it's Florida
subpar
State.
folks since Jameis, really.
Yeah.
Well, Kyle, it was a tough weekend for Michigan State. I know you weren't going in with like incredibly high expectations, but
I didn't go in with expectations.
so break down CJ Stroud's career day.
I think the stat that I saw, CJ Stroud has had a touchdown 30 of his last 38 possessions. It's just 6 touchdowns last year, 6 touchdowns this year. The guy has 12 touchdowns in 2 years against Michigan State. It wasn't as bad as last year. I'll say that. I mean, 49-20. Some of that might have been sympathy coming into the game. So I think as a team, there was some positives that were there compared to what were there last year. Yeah, I didn't have any expectations going into the game at all. I completely was prepared to get killed. But hey, when he did throw that pick six, that was just, I mean, Brantley didn't really have to do much, just made a turn on it, and the wide receiver for Ohio State ran the wrong route is all it was. It wasn't even Stroud's fault that pick six even happened. But when that happens, hey, we're tied 7-7 and got a game here coming in the end of the first quarter. And so I had a little bit of a moment where I kind of got excited. But it's just there's so much wrong with this MSU football team right now. Special teams. So I wasn't here to talk about it last week, but going back the week before, special teams was awful at Maryland. Atrocious. 7 points left on the field from special teams. Missed field goal, blocked field goal, missed extra point, all in the first half. So that was they're down by 7 at the end of the first half. That was the difference in the game, was all on special teams. And then end of the game, they were driving, had the chance, like they would have made a 7-point game had been able to convert. And again, that ends on special teams at that point in time. So I can't even point and say special teams has been decent for the team this year. That's been terrible. The defense has been the same story. There's not really an answer, and as much as the coaches don't want to say and call players out and be what it is, coaching, yes, definitely part of it. And I have not been happy with Scotty Hazelton's game calling, but in his defense, to a point, they don't have, with 6 of the best defensive players on the team being out now in the year. I don't care who you are, even if you're Georgia, Alabama, you lose 6 of your best players. It's on defense, you're going to struggle. That's going to show no matter what team you are, but especially when you're a team that does not have the depth yet for recruiting coming in for this team, that really hurts. And so the personnel is just not there. They can't, they're not fast enough. They're not skilled enough to be able to make the adjustments they need to. I feel like they're getting a little bit better as it's going on. That game against Maryland, though, so many times they'd line up. Brantley would be put 7 yards off the wide receiver, and pre-snap he'd already be backpedaling. And it's like, okay, you're leaving now with the receiver 15 yards open. All Tagovailoa had to do was just quick out, and then it was like, oh, maybe he didn't get the first down, but he got 7 yards because it was a quick pitch out, and then he ran 7 yards. I mean, that's and so it was just, they kept on being able to convert on these things, and so that was frustrating. On the offensive side, I defended Peyton Thorne across the board this year. I'm at the point in time I'm not going to say that I'm ready for us to go ahead and switch over to Noah Kim or to Caitlin Hosier at this point in time. But things have got to change. And Thorne looked a little bit better this week, a little bit. But it is, the first couple of weeks he was bad. His mechanics were off. Now his mechanics don't seem to be off, but he is afraid to make a decision with the ball. And so he never takes any shots downfield. He just always keeps on doing his checkdowns and then throwing the ball 2-3 yards past the line of scrimmage, and then it's no different than a short run play because they can't get anything going. There's nothing there.
There's no dynamic plays. Right,
no, and so and that was bad enough this week at the Maryland game. Seeing it in person, I was so frustrated at I'm yelling my head off sitting there in the bleachers because at least 8 times he had a receiver down the middle of the field wide open in either Carr or Coleman or even Mosley a couple times, completely wide open, nobody around him, and you'd see him look in his direction, but he wouldn't throw it. He'd hesitate, and then he'd check down, and again, same thing. Either he throws it into double coverage and it's incomplete, throws it into double coverage and it's caught, and then there's no gain because he only threw it 4 yards past the line of scrimmage, or he'd take a sack. Or when he would hit one of those men that'd be wide open for me to see them open that long, it would take him forever to make the decision to throw it. By the time he would throw it, the receiver would have to stop in his route. You gave the DBs time to be able to make a play on the ball. And so, yeah, he got 8 yards, but that's all they got was 8 yards. Now you're setting up for a 3rd and 2 when had he hit him a half a second before, it probably would have been a 15-yard gain. It was just Thorne is playing scared because the offensive line has not been very good for him either, and he's not making the decisions he needs to make to be able to get rid of the ball when he does. He's not comfortable and he doesn't know what to do. So I don't know what the solution to that is because I don't think that you throwing in either the next quarterbacks up, it really does a whole lot for you at this point in time to change things anyway. You don't have the line to protect those guys, and I don't want to completely tarnish their ability for the future either. But at the same time, if this is what Thorne's going to be, he's a junior right now. He's got a senior year, plus he has a COVID year left down there. I don't want Thorne as my quarterback for the next 2 years.
So, all right, if you zoom out and you want Mel Tucker to make 2 or 3 decisions or look at 2 or 3 things, what are those things that you want him to look at or decide?
For this year, for next year, moving forward?
For the program. Like, what do you want him to decide high level? Zoom out.
I want new defensive coordinator.
Okay.
I want a change in philosophy for offensive coordinator. I'm not ready to say Jay Johnson gone yet, but kind of there. I want you to change the approach that you're doing offensively to go away from being run first all the time.
Okay.
And I want you to develop your defensive backs.
Okay. Reasonable.
Those are the 3 things that have to happen. But even though those 3 things get fixed, I'm still not confident next year.
Well, that's why I'm surprised that you're not saying any emphasis on development for quarterback, recruiting for quarterback, maybe getting more. When was the last time you guys had any dynamic aspect for quarterback? Right? When was the last time you had anybody that could run?
Changing philosophy of your offensive scheme shifts how you recruit.
Yeah.
Caitlin Hosier is a 4-star recruit from Oregon, who's
athletic.
He looks really good. Like I'm very hopeful for what he can be. He was able to bring in Jeremy Bernard, who was a borderline 5-star receiver who was committed to Oregon, decommitted, and then committed to Michigan State on signing day. I want to see what those 2 can do. They played together. Kind of the Thorne Reed connection is there with the Bernard and Hosier connection, and I want to see that develop at that point in time. But again, there's so much that's concerning about it right now. I don't even know that changing those 3 things, how much that does next year. We lost a recruit yesterday, a 4-star offensive tackle in Weldon. He says that it was not because of football or because of the program. He said it was unrelated personal decision, told him to go. The belief is, and we'll talk about Matt Rule here in a second, is that it looks like Matt Rule, rumors are rumblings about possibility of Auburn, and they have him as a crystal ball right now to Auburn. And there's a connection there. So I think that might have been part of it. But the recruiting class is really good. It just has to stay really good. We can't lose anybody else. If recruits start dropping off, my faith for the future dwindles greatly at that point in time, just because I'm not seeing guys get developed right now. I think Tucker is a great coach, and I have still a lot of faith in him, but he's not having the success that Antonio did with the 2 and 3 stars, turning them into 4 stars on the field. And so I got to believe you got to be bringing in the 4 stars right now and them playing at that talent level. So it's a mess. I know I rambled on there and talked a lot in circles. It's just
does the
there's not a
bleeding,
lot
we're
to
not going
hold on to right now.
We're not picking this game, but does the bleeding stop? I mean, 4 straight losses now. Does it get to 5, 6? I mean, it's probably if it doesn't stop here, it gets to 6. So
if they don't win this week, it's probably 6 straight losses.
Yeah.
I hate saying that because I hate picking scum to beat us in 3 weeks.
Well, there's 7.5 point underdogs at home this week against Wisconsin.
Yeah, I feel the best going into this game, the Wisconsin game, that I have any game since Akron. So that's just because I don't think Wisconsin's that good. And I think we stack up decently well against Wisconsin, where our weaknesses are and where their strengths are. I think this is the best chance that we have to be able to get a win. Get a win here, get to at least 3 and 5, or be 3 and 4 at this point in time. Get at least to 3 and 4. Probably lose to Michigan just because Michigan, that Michigan team is, our weaknesses stacked up against Michigan's strengths is a nightmare. That's a matchup nightmare for this Michigan State team. I hate saying that, but it is. Put us at 3 and 5 against them, and then Indiana, Rutgers, and Penn State to finish out the season. So you got to win this weekend if you have any chance to be able to have an opportunity to play for a bowl game. Have to, and we'll see. That bowl eligibility is a big difference in your ability for your program to go forward with having extra practices, being able to develop and have that time. That when you don't get to a bowl game, that hurts. They don't get to a bowl game, that really hurts the ability of the program to grow. So that's my Michigan State depression for you.
Well,
I don't expect it to get a whole lot better.
We'll see.
We'll see. You never know. It's a long season.
Hey,
Peyton, going over to Tennessee. Going over to Tennessee. Yeah, polar opposite. I mean, another big win. I mean, we're going to talk about this week's game coming up, but how encouraging was the win this week against LSU at LSU?
I'll be honest. I was nervous going into this game because I still had questions around, like, can we execute? Are we going to do the same thing that we've done previously where we'll have a good win and then somebody else will trip us up, like when BYU ended up beating us at the beginning of the season a few years ago. And, we've struggled with some smaller opponents. But anyway, I was really happy that the fan base showed up. I know that got a lot of attention on Tennessee threads. If you noticed in the fourth quarter, not even quite halfway through the fourth quarter, the stadium had pretty much emptied, which is not normal for LSU. And it was nothing but orange everywhere. Even when it was still full, there was a lot of orange everywhere. So the fan base was calling it Tiger Takeover. I think that played into part of it for our guys being able to see, like, wow, we're legit right now. People really want to come and watch us play. So from a confidence perspective, execution, I will still always have areas where I want them to improve, but special teams played great. We get the turnover first play of the game on the kickoff, and then are able to march on down and grab some points. Special teams I was happy with. Our offense still clicking, still able to, put up yards, get downfield. I love the pace that we're playing with. I think it really shows how tired these SEC defenses are.
Hooker for Heisman.
And we'll see. I don't know. And I told Andy 2 things that I wanted to see us do. We needed to establish the run. We are not a team that's like built really for like a huge run game, but we have to have an effective run game if everything else is going to click in the passing game. And then I wanted to see us pressure Daniels. He's not had a great season. There's a lot of questions between him and the wide receivers and the chemistry there. I knew if we could pressure him and get him rattled, then we could probably, get some stops or enough stops to be able to do what we needed to do. And so anyway, we were able to establish the run. Glad to see Jabari Small get over 100 yards, well over 100 yards, and get back into the end zone too. But as far as stopping the run, I'd say pressuring Daniels and stopping the run. Our defensive line, our front eight, is just they played excellent. They were the part of our team that I was most impressed with in the win. LSU rushed for 55 yards total. We have so far been a pretty stout defense against the run, and I think that is valuable as we look at going into a game against Alabama with Jahmyr Gibbs, with Bryce Young. A team that every single year has a strong run game. So I was really impressed with how our guys did on defense there. But yeah, I don't want to get into a space where I think, oh yeah, we got it locked up. No, like they impressed me in different ways. Week 1, week 2, week 3, they've done it again this week. I want to see how they impress me this next week. I still think that there are some people that don't think we can do it. I think we have all the tools. I think our coach is amazing right now, that he just has a formula that works in this type of conference with this type of football. He's got a formula that works right now. He's got coaches that are bought in. He's got players that are bought in. He's got a fan base that is bought in. So Tennessee is, they're making me happy right now, but I've got to see the continued production.
Yeah, I think you will. I have faith in this Tennessee team, and this is probably the least. Well, and we'll get to our picks and talk about it, but coming into this weekend of the Alabama game, this is probably the most unsure I've been about an Alabama game in eons for Alabama going into a mashup. And that speaks credit to how good this Tennessee team has looked. And again, Shannon, I was joking, but I'm half serious. I mean, Hooker keeps up what he's doing, and does it this week against Bama, and does get you guys the win over Bama. He's got to be right there with Stroud for the Heisman favorite.
Yeah, and he's not putting up just like absurd numbers like Stroud did this past week, but he is managing the game and executing seamlessly.
Yeah,
everything to come together and getting
a harder competition than what Stroud faces last week.
Yeah, we are looking at, once we play Alabama, 4 out of our first 6 games have been against ranked opponents. And LSU they have got a lot of struggles. I think Brian Kelly, it makes it seem like the coaching staff is not super healthy right now, but they're always a talented team. And they have looked decent against some of these other opponents. But I think they had earned a 25 spot. I think they'll crack the rankings again at some point. That just got left out. I think they'll come back in.
Yeah, we'll see. I'm not that big on LSU to be able to do that. I mean, but going forward, I mean, you guys have the Bama game this week. Then
UT Martin.
So finally get a little bit of a breather. UT Martin to be able to take a little bit easier there.
And Georgia.
But Kentucky, Georgia.
Oh, Kentucky, then Georgia.
You got number 22 Kentucky, who is also sneaky good. Tough team as well. And then you got Georgia. I mean, that's no easy. The next 3 of the next 4 games are going to be pretty tough there. But then Missouri, South Carolina, Vanderbilt, I think you should win out those games to finish out the season. So I know you said 9-3 is what you kind of expected for the season. Looking where you're at, I think 10-2 is a little more likely.
11-1.
11-1. Okay.
11-1.
Well, we know who you're taking this week in the picks because you never take Bama, and you always got to take your Vols.
Yep.
So we'll get there when it comes up.
Yeah, that one's the easiest one to pick right now.
and you'll be at that game as well too.
I will be at that game. Yes, screaming my head off and just acting like a complete maniac with everybody else. The anticipation for the fan base going into this game. I'm wondering if we might end up breaking some sound records at college football games. I truly believe that this is going to be the loudest event in any way that I have ever been at.
I'm sure.
And I cannot be more excited.
Get the Decibel app on your phone and make sure you figure out what that is when you're there so we can see it.
Oh yeah.
So, all right, well, let's talk Liberty football here for just a moment. Got the win again this week. Was at first part of the game that you
started off shaky.
Started off a little shaky there. Can we say again, not having Salter, how much that makes a difference in between Salter and Bennett?
Yeah, it just brings a different dynamic, right, to the offense. And I mean, Bennett, he knows the offense, and he has some flashes where, obviously, especially in the run game, and if you can kind of scheme open a few guys, then it can work. But there are some rough patches where the offense goes dead, and if the run game hits a little bit of a glitch, then that's why we need Salter, especially with the offensive line and their continued issues. So, but obviously, as the news came out, Salter got surgery already. I think is that what Christian said? Already had surgery.
Yeah.
So we're probably not going to see him until after BYU. Now we have Corey Brewer already starting to practice, but
Charlie Brewer.
Charlie Brewer.
Charlie Brewer.
Mm-hmm.
Get the Brewers right. But yeah, Charlie Brewer. We'll see if I don't think he'll be ready for this week, but we're definitely going to probably need him next week at this point.
Yeah, I don't think you play him this week against Webb unless you really need to pull it out, unless it's really bad.
And Christian made this point in the chat: is if he's ready somewhat, you maybe give him a few series just to kind of knock the rust off.
Mm-hmm.
So you're not throwing him out there for his first snaps against BYU again.
Homecoming too.
And I'm assuming I haven't looked this up, but I'm assuming he's played BYU in the past.
Ooh, has he? I can look real quick here.
I was going to say with the
game log,
3 years at Baylor and then a year Utah. I don't know. Maybe I would assume somewhere.
I feel like they would have played at Utah.
Yeah, I would assume somewhere in there he's played BYU. And on that note, I mean, BYU coming off a pretty tough loss against Notre Dame. I know I watched that game. I don't know if any of you did, but it was Jaron Hall was atrocious. I mean, the first half that he had, I know we're talking Liberty, but foreshadowing, I mean, if the defense gets pressure on Jaron Hall, he panics and makes some bad decisions. I mean, he waited in the end zone and took a safety, and he just sat there. Like he had 5 seconds to throw and just stood there in the pocket and got sacked for safety. And I don't know. I just think if you get pressure on him.
Andy and I were talking about this a lot this past weekend. College quarterbacks I feel like they're not taught to throw the ball away.
Yeah.
Throw the ball away. It's so much easier to get out of the pocket than it is in NFL typically. So, there is no excuse for you to not be able to just throw the ball away. There are a handful of quarterbacks in college that can do it consistently. But so many other people, they'll take the sack or they'll try and force something. I'm like, no, think. Please think.
Yeah. I know that all too well with Michigan State quarterback right now.
I knew it's all too well last year with Zach Wilson. I mean, in the bringing it to NFL, and that's something he's been better at this year. Some of his best plays in the game are just throwing it away, and that translates to college too. It comes down to football IQ and, like you said, coaching, of being taught the right situation, right scenario. And again, Jaron Hall. I mean, I wonder, we'll see against in that Liberty game, but
do you think the difference in hash marks and the way it's set up for a pocket plays any difference into it in college and NFL?
I don't think so. I wouldn't think so.
It's still based on the line, though.
Yeah, the pocket though. I mean, where you? Yeah, yeah.
It's still based
Okay,
on the offensive line, not necessarily the hash marks.
that's true. Well, yeah. So Liberty football should we this weekend against Gardner Webb and 6-1 be bowl eligible already, and then can take on the Mormons and see where it goes. I will be
Well,
in Michigan for that game at a wedding, DJing it that day. So I'll be
so
trying to
you'll
keep
have
an
it
eye
on
on
the
as much as I
phone.
can. I will have it on the phone.
There you go.
Yep.
And can I make a note of that Arkansas game doesn't look as bad now, does it?
No,
3-3 now, I believe, and it is
It
an
is.
ugly loss last week.
It is different when Jefferson is not playing. We
Yeah.
have to call that out.
Yeah,
which
I
he
know.
should be back this week.
But still, even
They've had a lot of injuries on
Yeah.
that team.
Well, and that plays in. I mean, if a lot of those injuries are going to continue, obviously, like you said, Jefferson should be there for the Liberty game, but I don't know. They're just not as scary as originally thought. This could be closer to that Old Miss game last year where they had a couple of chances, maybe, and a few right calls, a few right bounces. They're right in that game.
it'd be pretty cool to get a win on the road against an SEC team.
That'd be a big one.
I would like that quite a bit. All right, so that'll do it for our fan perspectives for the week. So Texas and the Red River rivalry game at Oklahoma. So
You want to call that a game?
You guys talked picks last week. You guys were all thinking it was going to be a little bit of a closer game. I didn't get to have my pick on there, but if you go back and watch it and record, I was pretty confident that Texas was going to roll.
Well, you
I did
knew at
not
that point.
No,
You knew at
no,
that
no,
point that Quinn Ewers was back. No, when you were doing it, we didn't know.
You're right.
In our
I
picks,
did.
he was uncertain still at that point.
Mhm.
You're right. I did know that yours
Okay,
was back.
there you go. Yeah.
Fair,
I did
that's
say
fair.
that.
Which
I did say
think
that.
most of us said
Yes.
if Ewers plays, Texas definitely.
Pretty
but
decisively.
now I
expected
don't think
Texas to
any
roll.
of us. I don't think
49
any of
nothing.
us, you included, Kyle, thought it would be
No.
49-0. That is,
Nope.
and like we mentioned earlier, it's less of Texas being back and more of Brent Venables has got his work cut out for him.
Yeah,
I don't.
mean, we're
like,
going to
I know
talk hot
there's a
seat.
lot of.
but-
I know there's a lot of fans out there that are like, oh, I don't know, is he the right guy? Boosters being unhappy and stuff like that. I'm like, you're not even halfway through the season. Like, keep in mind, Lincoln Riley took half the team with him to USC and left Venables with nothing. So the fact that he's putting anything together right now is kind of impressive.
Did he really take
So-
that many with him to USC though?
He took a handful.
But you do bring
know,
in
but I
Dylan
feel like-
Gabriel, right? I mean, Dylan Gabriel looks the worst that we've seen him in his career. Which I did not
he's
expect.
probably the least productive of the UCF quarterbacks.
But there were, I mean, yes, but there were big name college football analysts picking him preseason for watch out, dark horse Heisman, Heisman.
I mean,
I mean,
I think they're picking Oklahoma. They're not necessarily picking
guess.
him
I guess
because of what happened with Jalen Hurts. But in my mind, I'm like, everything is different. Like, you can't lean on these teams because of who they are. Like, they were ranked 9 or 11 or something to start.
they were top 10.
season.
They were top
And I'm
10.
like,
Yeah.
why? Like, you lost your best quarterback. That you've lost other players as well. There's a complete difference. Like, at least put them at 17 or 20 or something like that, because you have no idea how they're going to be. But that's where it annoys all of us, the branding that goes into preseason.
Well, it is tough to evaluate some of that stuff though year over year, right? We see some of the transfers, but we see some of the transfers coming in. Obviously, we saw Brett Venables and what he could do on defense, and that has not translated at all. The defense has been atrocious. And a lot of that, like you said, is talent, but the scheme has not translated over. So it's tough year to year to evaluate that. You only have last year to go off of, and then what most people thought a pretty good hire in replacing Lincoln Riley, right? So I get that, but we only have so much to go off of on preseason rankings to start the year on what we're going to. But obviously, way off, right? Way off. That this team is bad, like really, really bad. And good to see Texas back though. On the flip side, Quinn Ewers. This
I,
guy's
I hope
he's
he can
special.
stay. I hope he can stay
Mhm.
healthy. But I agree with you. He's special. He does very well. I mean, he's had to deal with sitting behind a superstar or being injured his entire career. The patience that he has shown to get to this point, I want him to be rewarded. I want him to end up getting what I feel like he is capable of earning.
They have quite a road ahead of them still as well too throughout the rest of the season. But I do want to say, with Ewers being back, hopefully, it makes that Texas Tech loss really icky as that blemish on the schedule. Because if he's back and if this Texas team looks as good as they looked, there's a possibility they could run the table moving out, and you're probably that Texas Tech loss by 3 is probably the difference between them being a playoff team and not being a playoff team if they are able to do it through the rest of the season. Just that's what an injury can do to a star player, and that's what an injury to a star player can do for your team going the season. Can really change the outlook of where things go. Going back real quick to the Oklahoma side of things, I was not as big of a fan of the Venables hire.
Oh, I wasn't either.
I didn't hate it. Like I understood making the decision to do it, and I probably, if it's Michigan State, I probably would have been like, yeah, okay, I'm good with this as well too. But I say my guard was already up in the season before the season came around to see how he was going to do, and I don't know that I'm very patient with Venables for more than this year and next year. I understand it took a lot with them to USC, but that's still a very talented roster, and you should not get beat 49-0 to your rival. That's not really excusable. So
I agree with you. Well, with both of you, I wouldn't have hired Venables. But I am the type of person who I tend to not prefer a coordinator hire into head coach. I prefer a like lower level head coach
Yep.
moving in.
Well,
'cause he's done it before.
especially
knows-
lifelong coordinators like this,
Yeah,
who are so good at what they did, and now
Yeah.
you're trying to change. Yeah,
why
And
weren't you a head
those-
coach before?
Those people that were a head coach before, like they had to build it before. They know how to do it, what went wrong. I think that's what coordinators get into, where somebody else kind of led that. Maybe they observed, but they don't necessarily glean all of the learning from that to carry into their own program.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, we'll see where the rest of this Texas team goes. Iowa State next should be able to get a win there. But then you got number 8 Oklahoma State, number 17 Kansas State, number 13 TCU, number 19 Kansas, and then finishing out with Baylor. I mean, that's quite a haul moving the rest of the season there. I don't think Kansas is that good, but we'll talk about that next.
Well,
week.
now they have
Well,
quarterback
yeah,
injuries
it's
as well.
different.
Hey, man, yes, but that backup quarterback looked very good still on Saturday. So
you have those things happen, and then a team has a week to look at film and plan. So when you're not ready to cover somebody like that, sure, they're going to gash you a little bit. The thing about Kansas, though, their defense, I think, is actually good. TCU is a very high-powered offense, and they did not look phased by slowing TCU down.
True. Which, again, if you're talking coming into this Texas team, now Texas did blank Oklahoma, but they also have given up a lot of points to other teams throughout the season as well too. So we'll see how that goes. So little bit then with hot seat talking on there. Any other college jobs you think are kind of in jeopardy as the season's moving on here, besides the maybe Venables is on there?
I would say Venables is not on there yet. I know there was talk after week 1 about Jimbo being on the hot seat. I don't think he is. Not yet. If he lost out, maybe.
I think him putting up a good fight against Bama keeps him off the hot seat for now.
He's in that stage where he's got a really big class coming in next year. I think they have a pretty strong QB that's coming in with that class. But yeah, I mean, he's kind of in that weird recruiting black hole.
Well,
He
they just
had
got DJ Hicks, who's 5-star defensive tackle, who I
Yeah.
wanted badly.
he
And
had a big one,
down
and it's
there.
a lot of skill positions and like defense,
Yep.
which is great to be able to add in. But again, they're not going to run your offense necessarily. So, but yeah, I would say Jimbo's not on the hot seat right now. I'm wondering if it's kind of like cooled off for a little bit, because I can't really. I mean, you wonder about. I'm blanking on his name. Miami.
Crystal ball.
Yeah, if there might be discussions about, hey, what's your plan going forward? Because we don't want to see a lot of close losses continuing on for too long. So Miami has been pretty impatient recently with
That and
their
the
coaching
Van
staffs.
Dyke regression has been kind of shocking. Which
Yeah, I was high on him going into the season, and
Yeah.
he's not looking like he's improving.
Yeah. I think Cristobal gets a little bit more of a leash just because he's alumni at Miami, and
I think they'll give him more time. Yeah, and
Yeah.
he's proven to be a head coach in successful ways in the past, especially at Oregon. So, I mean, Harsin at Auburn. I mean, I don't know. How about David Shaw? I mean, that's a name we haven't heard in a while. But
yeah,
Stanford's been
That is
struggling
true.
this last few years. I think they're starting on 1-4 now at this point.
Disappointed I didn't mention that, because I think I put it in the text.
you did, and I forgot all about it too, though, Peyton.
But yeah, Stanford looks horrible right now, and it's been their only winning season in the last 4 years was the COVID year when they only played 6 games.
You got to go back to 2018, last year, the winning season.
Yeah, so
And this is a guy who was getting, NFL hype, previous to those last couple of years. I mean, same with Pat Fitzgerald, right? Pat Fitzgerald's kind of flaming out a bit, and he was getting some NFL hype as well.
Yeah,
mhm.
I think it's an indication. It's rare for college coaches to be able to stay at programs for this long and have continued success. It does happen, but it's not the norm. I mean, you see lots of coaches that have success and then they dwindle off. Mark D'Antonio's at Michigan State for a long time and dwindled off. David Shaw's been at the head coach. I mean, well, he was Harbaugh's assistant back until 2010, right? And so he's been the head coach for 12 years going there. You have Pat Fitzgerald's
Well,
been at.
he had Pep Hamilton in between, I think.
I don't think so. I think it went right from. I don't think Pep was ever the head coach there, was he?
Did Pep just coordinate?
I think Pep was just the coordinator
Then he moved up to the Colts.
And then moved up to the Colts, and then he went with Harbaugh back to Michigan when he was there. So I don't think so. And then you go to Iowa and Kirk Ferentz, same kind of a thing. Like it's hard to be at a program that long and to be able to see continued success, and eventually I think you burn out and you reach a point in time where you run out of ideas to reinvent your program to build things over. And unless you're Nick Saban or Paterno or Bobby Bowden, it's real hard to build a long-lasting legacy that.
Or Snyder with
Or Snyder, Kansas State. Yep.
That's
I
such
guess
a weird
you could probably
long-term
say
one.
Dabo too. He's been there for a while and still doing decently well.
Yeah, he's
so
falling off. That's the start. He's going downhill.
I got one more name. How about Mike Norvell, Florida State?
I don't know, because I don't think they expected to start off like this year.
Yeah, no, I
They've
think this
started
has
off
been
pretty good.
Yeah, I think so far, overall, the year's kind of been a positive for expectations.
Do you think he has to really keep that up though, or because here's my thinking: if you're Florida State and you have the potential that you think, could we pull Deion away from Jackson State? Do you make the switch and try to pull Deion, bring primetime back to Florida State?
Bring primetime back to primetime.
Bring primetime back to primetime.
But do you think primetime would do this?
I don't know. I honestly don't know.
He would want a lot of control.
Yeah.
And I don't necessarily think that it would be
him.
unwise to give it to him. Like, I think he's just a lot smarter than people give him credit as far as putting teams together. But I mean, I could see him being on their list of first to call if Norvell doesn't work. But I think they're happy with Norvell right now. Now, if Norvell only has like a 7-win season next year, you might get called into an office and start to have some discussions of the following year being, hey, you prove it or else we'll pull the plug. So I don't think, I mean, Florida State's had a ton of success. So they're not a program to wait around and just stay bad.
Right.
So I would say minimum he's got this year, next year, and the year after.
Can I say one thing on Jimbo before I don't think he's necessarily in the hot seat, but I do think there need to be a few changes as far as he needs to finally adjust. He needs to update his system. Maybe that entails giving up control and giving up play calling, but he does need to change his system. It's very outdated. The quarterbacks, it makes it really hard for these quarterbacks to succeed in that offense. And you can tell the system hasn't changed in 10, 15 years. And it's the same Jameis system, and it worked back then, but college is very different at this point. And hate Saban or love Saban or hate him, but the guy knows how to adjust, bring in the right guys, and change systems and stay up to date. And Jimbo's not doing that on offense. So I think that's the thing. I don't think he's on the hot seat just yet, but I think if he doesn't make those necessary changes in the next year and a half, then he's in big trouble. But all that money owed, I don't think at this point, with that extension and what $90 million still owed, I don't think he's going anywhere just yet.
I don't know either. I mentioned this before. I think it's very likely that Brian Harrison is out at Auburn at the end of this year, and I do think it's likely. Too. I think it's likely that you see Matt Rule there. I really do. I think that seems like a strong candidate and a possibility.
I feel like Hugh Freeze would be a candidate that they would start knocking on the door, because the number one thing for Auburn to do, they could lose every game, but if they can win the Iron Bowl, it's a successful season.
Beat Bama. Yep.
And who has the best measure of how to beat Saban than Hugh Freeze?
Yep, that's fair. I hope not. I don't want to lose him, especially at Auburn, but that's a real possibility.
Yeah, that'd be a bummer. But they also know it would piss off Ole Miss, which would be another win for them. So, I mean, you got a lot of things at play. I think a lot of SEC teams are keeping their eye on Hugh Freeze.
Well, I think Bill O'Brien has to start getting some. Every guy that comes from Saban and the reclamation project of the OC turnover lately. And I don't know necessarily if he's done a great job this year or not, but injuries have played a little bit of a factor lately. But I think he's shown what he could do with Penn State. He's shown that he could be a good college coach, even in the NFL. There was a lot of successful things there, aspects. So I think he's going to get some consideration for a lot of these big names.
Sure he does. Yeah. So a name that I think going into the season, we kind of wondered maybe would be a little bit of a hot seat potential. Chip Kelly. Chip Kelly has really got things humming, it seems like, at UCLA. UCLA now 6-0 to start off the season.
He's got himself a quarterback.
Got himself a quarterback. Got himself a quarterback who manages the game and makes smart decisions, and a defense that plays fairly well too. Did have one kind of scare against Georgia Southern earlier in the season. Other than that, they've looked really good and really dominant in their games they've had so far. I've been impressed with UCLA. I think there's a real possibility you see them, and it comes down to the battle for LA between them and USC for the Pac-12. I think is a real possibility.
Yep, more than likely that's the way it's looking right now.
I do want to say props to Chip Kelly on the way that he played out, going to UCLA. I think there were other jobs that he could have gotten, and we were all kind of a little confused on him going to UCLA, and there were a lot of other jobs that were open that he could have gone for, especially in the SEC or the Big Ten, that he was in consideration for. And I think the reason that he took UCLA is he wanted time. I think he wanted to make sure that he wasn't going to be pressured out before he could implement his system. And we know with Chip Kelly, the system works, but you have to give it time. And some of those other big jobs that he could have taken, it was a rough start at UCLA, but
Mhm.
after time, which I don't think he would have gotten at some of those SEC schools. So I give him props to finding the right situation and UCLA to be able to give them, give him enough time to be able to do this, because a lot of other schools probably would have fired him previous to this year, and you would have never gotten to this point.
That's the perk of working for the state.
Yeah.
That's fair. Yeah, and I think, like you said, that they got this weekend, or not, they're by this weekend, but the next weekend they play at Oregon. Tells a lot for the way the rest of the season goes. I want to see him continue to have success out there. The better he's able to build up UCLA to have success coming into 2024, when it looks like they're still going to be joining the Big Ten in 2024.
Mhm.
That's better for the Big Ten conference as a whole. So I'm cheering for that. But I want to see fans back in the Rose Bowl again for other games than just the Rose Bowl.
Yeah.
So that's a hope there too. Maybe they keep on getting success and we can see more than 25,000 into 105,000 seat Rose Bowl.
Looking like a Chargers game lately.
Right, exactly. So any thoughts on Heisman? You guys?
Well, I'm sticking with CJ Stroud. We're doing a Heisman draft.
I was going to say, run through all the picks again, because I don't remember who Christian has.
Thomas has CJ Stroud.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sticking with it.
I have Bryce Young.
Mm-hmm. You sticking with it?
Peyton has Hooker.
Mm-hmm.
Jared. Okay, Jared last week was gonna.
He did change.
He didn't. He thought about it. He thought about changing to go to Daniels, but he didn't. Right. And he's lucky that he didn't, because Daniels is out for the year now. I don't remember who he took though.
Is he still with Shipley?
I thought he. No, didn't he switch to Penix at one point?
Yes, he did.
Yeah. No. He's Will Rogers. Or not
he
Will
did.
Rogers.
Will Anderson,
Mississippi State. No, Rogers is his last name, right? Mississippi State QB. That's who he took.
Oh, I don't know.
Come on.
Yeah.
Is it Will
Rogers? Rising?
Yeah.
Did he take Rising?
No, Will Rogers.
Oh, that's Utah. Okay. Will Rogers.
None of us are giving up ours, so we can't take any of those. We'll ask him.
You're sticking with Bryce Young after what, two games missed?
There's nobody else.
You're sticking with Bryce Young even when he's about to lose?
He's going
to get shut down, and you're still going to stay with him?
At this point in time, Hendon Hooker are plus 1,400. They're both tied for third in odds at this point in time. So until after this game, I'm not going to make a change on Bryce Young yet.
You don't want to take Caleb Williams?
Not yet.
No, Dorian Thompson-Robinson?
Because if Bryce Young does play this weekend and does make the difference in that game against Tennessee in a huge game like this, he shoots up to be right up there with CJ Stroud again.
Shut up. Shut up.
It's if. I'm not saying I'm cheering for that. I'm just saying if.
Shut up.
So no changes. So no Heisman changes this week.
Yep.
Okay.
Not when we'll ask if Christian joins us in the NFL portion. We'll ask him. We'll come back to this.
Has this just to wrap up the Heisman? Has this been kind of the most boring Heisman watch thus far in the last few while?
But this entire season for college football has been, I don't want to say
kind
boring, but
anticlimactic a bit.
It's a down year for college football.
Yeah.
It really is. Unless you're Tennessee.
Well, take the bias
Michigan
out of
State
it.
suffers for 1 year, and it's a down year of football for everybody else. Jared and I are sitting here happy with our teams. UConn is winning football games. Come on, Kyle.
Yes, but I get the point.
UCLA 6-0. That should say something.
Texas is doing really well again.
Yeah, but
all of the things in football that make football good are happening, and Kyle's like, nah.
But there's no great team, right? There's no great. I get what Kyle's saying. There's no like.
It is probably going to be the hardest year to pick. I think to pick the playoff. I just because I don't think anybody necessarily stands out.
This would have been a great year to go to 12. This would have been a good year for 12 because I think there are almost double-digit teams that could probably contend on any given week this year. This would have been a really good year for that.
So you almost sound like more teams are competitive, Thomas. Unlike
Well, okay, yeah, that's one aspect. I think yeah, you're right. That might make it compelling in the end, but I think week to week, some of these games and matchups have kind of been a little lackluster. I think the overall talent, other than CJ Stroud and Hooker, some of the quarterback play has been very inconsistent. Where we've seen, a lot of the quarterbacks we thought would take the leap haven't from last year. Things like that. I don't think there's, a ton of dynamic teams and offenses, compared to previous years, if that makes sense. But that does allude to at the end of the year maybe more competition and more parity. So maybe at the end it pays off.
All right, we'll move on here and get to our picks. So, all right, week 7 college football picks. Let's go ahead and start it off with, let's just get it out of the way. The Penn State Nittany Lions traveling to that horrible place in Ann Arbor, Michigan, taking on the number 15 scum, University of Michigan. Now, I'll go ahead and I'll start off with a pick for this one. So, Penn State historically never does well at U of M. They always seem to lay an egg. They do very well against U of M when it's at home, but they never go into Ann Arbor and be able to win a game. And so based on that, I don't have a ton of confidence going in. However, do you know how many teams in the top 25 how many teams in the top 25 currently do not have a win or a loss to a top 25 team? To another ranked team?
a win or a loss? One, Michigan.
Yeah. Michigan is the only team in the top 25. They're the only team in the top 20 that does not have a win over another top 25 team. They are the only team in the top 25 who has not either won or lost. So they've not even played a top 25 ranking. Penn State, while they haven't had a huge resume, has definitely played a tougher schedule at this point in time, and I think is more prepared. So not just the fact that I never want to pick that team from Ann Arbor to win. I'm taking.
So I bit and took your little nibble there of being able to guess, but Penn State also has not played a top 25 team, though, right?
No, they played Pitt, right?
Nope.
Oh, no, they didn't. That was my apologies. I jumped to the wrong conclusion there. I was thinking of West Virginia playing Pitt the first week. They played Purdue during that same night, the same game. That's my bad. Okay, so yeah, it doesn't work out a whole lot better for.
Sorry, Kyle.
It's all right. They're both overrated. That's all there is to it. While we're on the topic of picks and being overrated, it is a shame that, Peyton, your Vols are not number 4 taking on number 3 Alabama, because you have played in how many ranked teams this year already? 3?
3.
You've already played 3? And why are you not above Michigan for 1 or Clemson for 2? How did Clemson jump Michigan but not you when you've played a tougher schedule than Clemson so far?
Clemson, I can stomach that a little bit better because they did have that big win against NC State.
Mm-hmm.
And then they were pretty handy against Boston College. So they didn't really give any indication of faltering at all. Now, it looked a little shaky kind of at the beginning with what Boston College was starting to do. But anyway, Clemson didn't actually let anything happen with that. Michigan, on the other hand, has not done anything except for almost lose
to Minnesota or to Maryland.
And I know you look at 31-10, it's like, well, that's not almost losing. And that's probably how the people who made the decision looked at it. But no, Indiana made that a very tough game for a long time. It was not until the very end that Michigan pulled ahead.
10-10 at halftime.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that Michigan defense has not been super stellar. And I think that this Penn State team is going to be decently good. So, yeah, I'm taking Penn State.
I'm going Penn State as well. Michigan plays down to their competition. Penn State traditionally plays up to their competition. I think that Michigan is just not as well-rounded of a team this year. I think Penn State goes in and steals one in Ann Arbor.
I'll go Michigan, but I think Penn State covers. I think it's a 7-point spread. I don't trust either coach at this point, to be honest. I don't know if I trust James Franklin in a big game at this point, or Steve Clifford. Not Steve Clifford. Is it Steve Clifford?
Sean
Sean Clifford? That just doesn't sound right. I don't
Well,
know
no.
why I was
Yeah, quarterback.
yeah,
talking,
no,
right?
no, yeah. I got mixed.
Yeah.
I got confused with the Charlotte Hornets coach, Steve Clifford, I think is what his name is. No, give me Michigan, but if we were going spread, I'd take Penn State. I think it's closer than a 7-point game.
You mean scum?
Sure, scum. I pick scum.
All right,
I don't like it.
We'll see what Jared and Christian take here as well. Then, all right, let's go ahead. We'll do you the same favor we did last week and put the Alabama game last. Oklahoma State, number 8, Oklahoma State Cowboys traveling to take on number 13, Texas Christian University Horned Frogs. Man, this is I think going to be a really good game. Texas defense or Texas Christian's defense looked really good last week. I'm big on Oklahoma State, Mike Gundy. Give me the Cowboys.
After watching the Texas Tech Oklahoma State game, which I know that I was messaging in a vacuum for a lot of that because other people were distracted. Really, really good game. A lot of wild stuff happening. The Oklahoma State defense was very impressive, even with Texas Tech being able to, and they will always have that high-powered offense. Even when they're bad, they'll still be able to move the ball down the field with big plays. But Oklahoma State was looking really good. I saw a lot of things. I liked TCU. Kansas has a great defense, but they couldn't figure it out. They kept trying to do the same things. So give me Oklahoma State over TCU. I think Oklahoma State's defense starts to get some turnovers and stall that TCU offense.
Give me TCU. Texas Tech should have won the game last week against Oklahoma State. I think they should have. I think they've been playing with fire. Give me TCU.
Texas Tech's a good team too, though. So
they are, but they're not at the caliber of TCU.
All right,
especially at home.
All right, number 15, Thomas, your North Carolina State Wolfpack taking on number 18 Syracuse Orange, traveling up to the Carrier Dome in good old Syracuse.
The problem here is we don't know if Devin Leary's playing. We have no clue, and if that's the biggest thing. Like it's like if he doesn't play, I don't know if they have a shot.
I do have to look here for a second. Who has Syracuse played so far? I know they're 5-0.
Well, hang on. Let me go ahead and before we get into that, let me go ahead and make my own pick here. I'm going to say that NC State wins, regardless of who is quarterback.
Okay.
Because Syracuse beat UVA by 2 points.
That's fair.
Give me NC State.
That is fair. They played UConn, Kyle. They beat UConn, so wow. I mean, yeah, they really haven't played. Purdue's probably their best win, and that was a 3-point win. I mean, maybe Louisville. Maybe the Louisville to start off the season. I mean, yeah. No, give me NC State. That defense will be tough.
They did beat Purdue by a field goal. That Purdue team has gotten a lot better, I think, since then as well, too, though. So,
and that game was wild at the end, too.
Yeah, it was. Yes, it was. Yeah, they only beat UVA by 2. Louisville to 31-7. UConn 48-14. Wagner 59-0. Yeah, I'm pretty confident NC State rolls in this one. All right, then let's move on to number 7 USC Trojans taking on number 20 Utah Utes. Give me Lincoln Riley and USC. I think they're going to roll all the way until the battle for LA. And while Utah is a good team, I picked Utah to win last week. I'm not going to do the same thing this week. I think another team from LA beats Utah.
Yeah, I'll take the same. And maybe it's recency bias, and I don't want to be hurt by Utah again, like you said. But I do like Cam Rising, but I like Caleb Williams as well, and I like Lincoln Riley. USC.
Give me USC on the road. I'm taking a lot of road teams. I think all of my picks have been road teams up to this point. But yeah, give me USC.
But you have a home team coming up.
Mm-hmm.
It's true. Yeah, last week that was a really hard game to pick for USC and or UCLA in Utah, and I went against my gut. And had I not gone against my gut, it would have been 5-0 last week in my picks. But
Oof.
it is what it is.
Tough.
All right, so the big game for the week, game of the season, I think thus far in college football. Number 3 Alabama traveling to Knoxville, Tennessee to take on the Tennessee Volunteers, who should be the number 4th team in the country, but number 6 team in the country, Volunteers. Peyton, start us off here.
Thank you, Kyle. Tennessee for sure is going to win this game. Now, here are my things. So I think that last week was gamesmanship, that Bryce Young was never going to play, even though Saban was trying to play tricks and he was announced as starting. He suited up. I think that was some gamesmanship. I think that Bryce Young is good to go for this next week. I think that Heupel is doing his own gamesmanship with Cedric Tillman, because they asked in some of his interviews today, how's Tilly? How's Tilly? Is he going to be back, ready to go? He's like, he's doing good. Like, I just super vague. So I think we might have Tillman back this week, which even if we didn't, Ramel Keaton has stepped into that role like he was the original starting wide receiver and not Tillman at all. So if you do a comparison of the quarterbacks, there's a lot of evenness there. They both have somewhat similar skill sets, being elusive, being able to throw the deep ball. But then if you compare the wide receivers, I give that favored heavily towards Tennessee. I don't think I have ever said that, especially when talking about Tennessee and Alabama. But we have some of the best wide receivers right now, and we are deep at wide receiver. Brew McCoy has been huge for us. He and Ramel Keaton have stepped up huge with Tillman being out. Super happy with both of them. I think that one of the biggest keys for us is, can we contain Bryce Young, and then can we slow down Jahmyr Gibbs? If we can do those things, I think that we have a real good outlook on our defense being productive. Offensively, we've got to keep it moving fast, and we have to maintain an average run game, something that keeps moving in the opposite direction of Will Anderson. If we move away from him, he's going to get frustrated. He's not going to be involved in the plays. I mean, it's just any coach wants to take the other team's best player out of the game. For us, it's moving away from Will Anderson. So give me Tennessee. I think that our defense and the way that it has stepped up, especially with the pass rush, the run stopping, I think that part has been golden for us up to this point. Our weaker part in the defense complements the weaker part of Alabama's offense with the wide receivers and our secondary. So yeah, I think our offense remains productive. Give me Tennessee in a wild, physical, angry fight.
All right. I'm going to go with the Vols. So, like I said, leading up into our recap from before, this is the least confident I've been in an Alabama game going in. I think they definitely could win. However, Alabama's played with fire twice this season now, between Texas A&M and then when they played at Texas. So they did play on the road at Arkansas, and that was a close game there, or it was not a close game there. They were able to win handily, but I don't think Arkansas was as good as what they're going to be facing this weekend in Tennessee. I think Hooker keeps on rolling. I think you're right. Just keep Williams away from him and be able to let things develop and give them the protection, and I think you guys control the time of possession and are able to walk away with a win. So yeah, give me the Tennessee Volunteers.
Well said. Give me Tennessee.
Picking
Give me Tennessee. No, I'd be surprised. I'd be surprised if Alabama gets through the year undefeated before the
Yep.
playoffs. And I think this is it. I think, like you said, Kyle, they've been kind of flirting with danger too much, and I think maybe holding out Bryce Young last week might kind of bite them in the butt and kind of throwing them here.
And as hard as I get beginning of the season, but as hard as a time as they had playing in that loud atmosphere in Austin, I think going to Rocky Top, that's a whole another level of heavy, I think, at that point in time. So and Orange, I mean, that's the kind of their a little bit of the nemesis, maybe. So
it's an orange out.
It's an orange
this
out
weekend. They're doing an orange out.
All right. Well, we'll give it over to Jared and Christian here to give us their picks for this week in college football. All right. Well, again, that will do it for our money. So, Christian, while we have you here, let's go ahead and go back. Okay. Let's get your college picks in here. We'll give you what our picks were for these. So the first one, number Penn State Nittany Lions traveling to take on number 5 University of Michigan Wolverines. So Peyton and I took Penn State. Thomas took Michigan. Who you got?
As I said a couple weeks ago, Sean Clifford fan right here. However, I am going to go Michigan.
Ugh, boo.
I know.
All right.
What a time to give up on Clifford.
I don't give up on him. I just think overall well-roundedness. I mean, Michigan absolutely has that. So I think Clifford. Clifford
defense has not looked good the last couple weeks. They let Iowa give up points. Iowa, whose offense is terrible, they let Iowa give up points. They let Indiana hang in the game with them. They really almost give it. They should have lost to Maryland.
Okay, sure. Buy low, sell high. Then I don't know.
Yep. All right. Number 8, Oklahoma State traveling to number 13, Texas Christian University. I think we kind of already know where you're picking on this one because you talked about it. What you got?
Absolutely. Go Horned Frogs.
All right. Going with the Horny Toads. North Carolina State Wolfpack traveling to take on number 18, Syracuse Orange.
As I mentioned in the text thread the other day, I saw that line. It was interesting. It was another one I was looking at because of that trend. I'm not necessarily taking that line because I think it's more injury related than anything else. But give me Syracuse in the Dome. They've been hot in the Dome. It's not a fun pick. It's probably losing, but let's have some fun. Let's take cues.
Yeah, you're on your own on that one. We all took North Carolina State pretty heavily.
Why would you sensibly actually take that?
See, okay, it makes me want to change my pick because Christian's oftentimes right when the rest of us are all wrong.
He was 4-1 last week as well, as we all were except for Jared. So, number 7 USC Trojans traveling to take on number 20 Utah Utes.
This was the other one that I was debating about pitching. Again, for the same exact reasons. Utah's a favorite there. I've seen people fading USC constantly, and I haven't understood why. However, based on that line again, I'm going to take Utah over USC.
Oh man, you are just changing it up on us all over the place here.
I know.
All right, taking the Utes. All right, and then finally, we know who you got to be taking in this one. Number 3 Alabama Crimson Tide traveling to Rocky Top to take on number 6 Tennessee Volunteers.
I will take Rocky Top, and I will go down probably crying to no end. But give me Rocky Top. I think this is the chance.
Peyton, this is not only the first time we have actually most of us have picked against Alabama. This has got to be the first time you've gotten a Tennessee sweep over Alabama.
That does not make me feel any better whatsoever.
I appreciate, and I know it's not picks because of me, but I appreciate the confidence that I'm seeing from other people, not just even this group, but others who are trying to break this apart. I think I agree with you, Christian. I think this is the real chance for us.
The only thing is, I'm just that's when Alabama comes in and just murders you and reminds you who's on top. not you as in Tennessee, but just in general. So I'm nervous, but I mean, this Tennessee team is just fun to watch and root for. So
Number one offense in America.
Contact Podcast fam. I wanted to give you my picks here for this upcoming week for college football. Should be a really great slate of games, honestly. I'm looking forward to quite a few matchups, but I know we have 5 here that we want to break down a little bit. First is the Big Ten, Penn State at Michigan. This is going to be a slugfest. And I think it's going to be a little more on the defensive side than what we might be thinking. I know that's kind of been years past defensively. I think that's going to show up again in this game. Michigan does a great job of stopping the run, and Penn State's bread and butter this year has been running the football. They're one of the very best in the country at doing so. With that said, Michigan hasn't really had anyone of note that they've played so far this year. Indiana gave them some problems last week, and Indiana's talent, especially on the offensive side of the football, isn't overwhelming. And I was a little surprised that the fact that Michigan was struggling to score up until about the fourth quarter. I think they put up 14 or 21 points in the fourth, and that's what really pulled them away for the game. So a little surprised that they struggle with Indiana. That said, man, my heart is telling me that Penn State's going to win this game, but I don't know. My mind's telling me, for whatever reason, to pick Michigan. So it's a bit of a toss-up, but I'm going to go Michigan. I think Michigan somehow finds a way to win this game. They get a marquee win. They need this win big time. I think that Jim Harbaugh gets his guys ready, Jim Harbaugh gets his guys ready, and they wind up winning this game. Next is Alabama, Tennessee. I know someone else in our podcast is extremely excited for this game. With the fact that it's just been year after year, Tennessee has been on the cusp of turning their program around. It really seems like they have found a rhythm offensively. Defensively, they still have a lot to be desired there, but I think they can get better throughout the season. This is a big test, and what better way to bring College Game Day back to Knoxville than to knock off the Goliath of Alabama? That would get the big monkey off of the back of Tennessee. I know they've been trying to bring relevance back for a long time. I think this is the year they do it. I do. I think this is finally the year that they take down Alabama. So I got Tennessee in this game in a close one. Next is OK State at TCU. Man, this is another tough game, but TCU has just looked so good all season long. Oklahoma State's looked very consistent too. Only reason I'm picking TCU in this game is because they're the home team. I know that may be a little silly, but honestly, sometimes you got to give it to the 12th man. I like TCU to win this game just for the fact that they're the home team. So give me TCU. NC State at Syracuse. No one would have thought this would have been a slated game for us to pick at the beginning of the season with Syracuse, but guess what? Here they are, undefeated, ranked. Who would have thought? Now, this is their biggest test of the season thus far. I don't think they're going to be able to handle NC State. NC State is just too seasoned. I know this is a pretty veteran group as well for Syracuse, but NC State they've been battle tested this year already by quite a few good teams. I feel like NC State is going to go into this game and take care of business. I think they could honestly wind up winning by 10. NC State's a very good team all around. Last week was a good win against Florida State. Give me the Wolfpack. Last is the USC at Utah game, and this is another interesting matchup. I was a little surprised last week that Utah struggled as much as they did against UCLA, given the fact that Utah was supposed to be the cream of the crop of the Pac-12, right there with USC. I knew that they were going to be 1-2. This is one I'm sure Utah had circled on their schedule. If USC were to go down, this is the game. And with it being at Utah, I know that Utah has had their struggles. They've also looked good at times. They've been a little up and down. So is USC. Yes, they've been consistent, but they still haven't really overwhelmed to this point. So I like Utah in this game. Give me Utah. I think Utah pulls this one out. And that's going to do it here for the college picks. I'll hand it back over to the guys.
All right, Jared, Christian, thanks for your picks. If you pick different than us, you're probably wrong,
Especially about Tennessee.
especially about Tennessee. So hopefully you did pick different than us. And
Oh,
hopefully
we
we're
already
right.
know
You're not-
Jared picked Alabama. We already know.
Oh, probably.
Just cause he always.
Jared is picking Tennessee this week.
Okay, good. Thank you, Jared.
I am confident that Jared is picking Tennessee this week.
Well, there we go. Because I got a 1-game lead on you. I'm 20-10. Jared's 19-11. Peyton, you're 18-12. Thomas, you're 19-10. And then Christian missed his first week. Christian probably would be with us. He's at 15-10. Just depends on how he would have done that and how those 5 would have gone that first week. So we'll see how this plays out, and it'll be a good week for college football again. So let's